You're listening to the Mackay Safety Our Clients podcast, brought to you by 4PS Software and the Bullion Group. You can find out more about safety compliance and safety management and the implementation of systems, independent audits and incident investigations by going to mackaysafety.com.au.
Welcome to the Mackay Safety Our Clients podcast, brought to you by 4PS Software and the Bullion Group. I'm your host, Kieran Moran. The Mackay Safety Our Clients podcast is designed to assist businesses become safe, as we believe safety forms the foundation for a successful and accountable business. Mackay Safety's clients span all industry, including mining, construction, rail, ports and the engineering, and range from small to medium enterprises to major multinational corporations. It's our goal for these podcasts to not only assist you with implementing safety systems and procedures, but through listening to our clients' stories, understand the importance of safety within your own business and how you can make everyone involved, including you, your staff and your clients, safe. On this episode of the Mackay Safety Our Clients podcast, we have Lisle Jacobson, co-founder and former director, manager of Southern Cross Marine Supplies. With offices around Australia, Southern Cross Marine Supplies have been servicing the shipping industry since 1966. Whether it's a tanker, cargo ship, aircraft carrier, fishing boat, luxury liners or oil rigs, Southern Cross Marine Supplies provide frozen and fresh food and beverages, technical products and new and second-hand spare parts. Welcome, Lisle, to the program.
Thank you.
Well, as I said in the introduction, it's got we've got co-founder of the business, Southern Cross Marine Supplies, and former director and manager. So from my understanding, you are now retired.
Yeah, that's correct, Kieran. Yes, after 46 years and being involved in privateering vessels, I've decided to have a rest.
Yeah, well, I think that it may be well-deserved. So you're actually co-founder of Southern Cross Marine Supplies. How did it all come about?
Well, after being involved in the industry for 46 years, as I said before, privateering vessels from, Hay Point in the south to Corumba in the north, we went through work for a series of entities, a number of entities, and during this journey, we decided that, with severe competition from particularly ports like Singapore and China, we needed to rationalise our costs and efficiencies, and we associated ourselves with a number of competitors and formed Southern Cross Marine Supplies NQ, and it's evolved from there, actually.
So how did it evolve? So let's just sort of start at the beginning then. What did you have at the start and how did you get moving?
Well, in 2000, I started in the business in 1976, but because of downturn in the ship supply business, I guess, and because of a number of competitors and unrealistic costs and that sort, and we needed to, as I said, rationalise and make new efficiencies to provide better services and reduce our overheads. Unfortunately, at that time, and as there still is, there's a lot of competition from Singapore, China, and other Asian countries. We formulated a plan and a number of entities got together and agreed to certain conditions and how we could provide all our independent services and put it into one pool. Yeah.
Okay, so what were some of those, or still are some of those services?
Oh well, the services is quite wide ranging. We call it ship privateering, but it's ship supply services. But in those services, we supply many items. It's very encompassing. It's foodstuffs. It's deck and engineering goods, chemicals, medicines. We have bond stores, which provides duty-free to ships, as well as arranging ship spares to be brought into the company and held in our specially approved bond for providing this service to the ships. And with providing these services to the ships, there comes a lot of safety plans that have to be put in place with cranes, etc., to get it on board safely. So and that with those cranes comes a lot of costs as well, and and to provide those costs, it costs a lot of money. So that's how we all got together and made a plan and to move forward and provide a safe, efficient ship supply company. Yeah.
So when you say we all got together, what do you mean by that? Who got together?
Oh, there was a number of competitors, a number of people who worked together within the industry, as well as work with us previously in previous entities, and we got together and formulated, like I said, a company that would basically supply most ports of Australia. And I was responsible for the North Queensland part of it, and it did run very well, over many years, and still does. So.
And how did it grow then? So you said about 46 years yourself were in the business, and I would like to sort of understand how did that business grow over that period?
Well, over that period, it was when I first became involved in the business. I worked for a company that provided services in basically Gladstone and Mackay, and during that time, it looked after those ports from Gladstone to Townsville, I guess, and then it eventually grew to looking after most ports in Queensland, and then it grew to looking after a lot of ports around Australia, but only in an agency arrangement in southern ports. And over that time, it was labour intensive, for example, working loading stores on various wharfs and around the country. And it had to involve, it could get more efficiencies, as I said, and the number of shore cranes were installed in certain ports. We provided crane trucks to be able to be operable in certain ports to provide these safe and efficient loading means. And in providing those means, I guess there came a lot of complexities with our obligations to safety and to the ports and the legal protocols. And it's an ever-changing, ever-evolving sort of a business in that way, yeah. Particularly with safety, yes, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was just about to get onto. So you've seen the business change, and I suspect the way we run our ports over the last 40 years as well, and so forth. So you've just mentioned in relation to safety changes, and it's got stronger and stronger over the years. But so we'll start at safety. How have you seen that change from the 70s right through to today?
Well, from the 70s, like I said before, it was pretty labour intensive. We had a lot of labour involved in loading and handling stores from truck to ship, or truck to ship's cranes, and nets from ship's cranes, and various ports had were different, had different systems, and we had to work within those systems safely and that sort of things. But as I said, with the ever-changing times of getting efficiencies and involved in reducing costs and maintaining the safety, as I said, operating these cranes was good, but it brought about, it brought with it a lot of complexities in respect to obligations, to the safety obligations. So, and that's when we invited and enlisted the services of Mackay Safety.
And we will get on to Mackay Safety later, but I'm sort of interested in, so a lot of these ships would have come from around the world. How have they, I suppose, complied with, they'll find it very different as they move into the Australian ports and so forth. A lot of them would be used to it. But what's some of the issues that you might have come across there from ships from around the world?
Oh, well, there was lots of issues, I guess. Language was one, I guess, and getting messages across and respect to procedures and how we obtained our orders and how we fulfilled our orders and what they required and what we could supply, because a lot of things that ships require are not available in Australia, and we had to, given time, we had to bring in certain specialist items, like technical items from overseas ports, and in a short period of time to provide the service to the vessels. Ships are only in port in some ports for a very short period of time, 36, 24 hours, that sort of thing, and maybe even less. So, but in the earlier days in the 70s, they were maybe alongside maybe alongside a lot longer, but with improved, ship loading efficiencies as well. Cargo loading efficiencies. They've cut those times back considerably.
Okay, then we, as I said at the start of the podcast, former, and you are now retired. Is that from August, did you say, or October this year, 2021?
29th of October this year.
Okay, then. So you've worked in the business for a long time. You built the business up. So how was that in relation to, how did you build the business up and, learn the industry, but also learn about building a business?
Oh, it's a ship supply is a day-by-day learning operation. There's nothing the same either day. There's always something new. There's always something you have to learn in respect to what is the ship's requirements. It's quite a big field. You're a butcher, you're a baker, you're a candlestick maker, you're an electrician. You have a lot of things to know a little bit of knowledge about, and particularly how to source those products. Like I said before, a lot of those things aren't available in Australia, particularly technical items. And the ability to be able to supply those items and source those items is very important. And if you can do that, and you have the contacts to do it, not only in Australia but from ports like Singapore, China, in short periods of time, you gain the confidence of your customers, and they depend upon you to look after them whilst they're in that port for a short period of times, because you can't hold them up. If you do, it costs them a lot of money. So if you can provide those services, they become very comfortable with what you provide, and they'll provide return business if their ships come to the new realm of ports. Yeah.
And how have you seen also, you're working basically within the import and export business out of our ports and so forth. And you would have seen both Gladstone, or all really, the three ports, Gladstone, Mackay and Townsville, change greatly. Townsville's only recently changed quite a lot over the last 10 years. And you could even put Gladstone into that bracket as well. And Mackay as well, in relation to they're making more changes up that way with, as you said, with being able to load products on there onto these ships. But how have you seen sort of the export and import business going? And after I get an answer, I'm also going to ask you a little bit about the reaction of COVID.
Those ports that you nominated there, the volume of cargo that has gone through those ports, and the variety of cargo that's gone through those ports has certainly changed over the last 40 odd years that I've been involved in it, particularly in our own backyard in Mackay. When I first arrived in Mackay, there was only one coal port, one coal loader at Hay Point. Now there's three there, I think, at Hay Point, and there's four at Dalrymple Bay and two at Abbott Point. So in that, the volume of coal that has been exported is certainly greatly increased. And even with Townsville, in the early days, it was quite small as well. It had a bigger variety of cargoes that exported and imported, but now the volume's increased, particularly with the cattle trade, even though it's a little bit quiet at the moment. There's a bigger variety of cargoes up in that area, and with COVID, the advent of COVID, in January, February 2020 has had a little an effect on it. Has had an effect on our business, to say the least, yeah. And it's changed the way we've had to supply ships as well, because we've had to reduce our contact with going on board ships, interaction with crews. It's all done digitally and emails and so forth now, rather than personally going on board. So it has changed a lot, yeah.
And how did you work that yourself as the twilight of your career in that respect? And I don't know if you did at the start of 2020 say, righto, I'm going to be retiring in another year and a half or so, and then COVID hits. What a way to end your career.
Yes, it was like a lot of people on the planet. It certainly changed a lot of ideas and the way we do things, and it was very unexpected, and we had to react accordingly, I guess. And unfortunately, it did reduce our volume of sales to ships because of the slowdown on the transport systems and from overseas and within Australia, and the procedures that's brought in to fight COVID. It just slowed it all down, and unfortunately, we did lose volume. But regulations dictated that you had to change our ways to do our business, and we acted accordingly. So the fact that we couldn't do the same things as we did in the past, we had to change. The terminals wouldn't. They had their regulations, and a lot of ports in Australia don't get has minimal interaction between ships shoreside and ships ship staff now. So, which is a dramatic change in a very short period of time.
Yeah, if there's one thing we can also always guarantee, there's only one constant in life, and that is change. And as you indicated before, a lot of safety requirements have changed and so forth, and that's where we'll get on to Mackay Safety. So Mick and his team have assisted Southern Cross Marine Supplies for a little while now, but with that change in safety, how did they assist the business?
Oh well, it was a necessity, of course. I think we enlisted the services of Mick and Mackay Safety in about 2014. And as I said, the complexities and obligations to safety protocols now is paramount. And with those protocols comes there's a lot of intricacies of maintaining compliance, and that's what Mackay Safety did. They scrutinised our work procedures and rewrote a lot of systems we had. They reviewed our work practices, and so we could maintain full compliance to the port systems within the safety systems within the ports. Yeah.
I suspect that would have been a little bit challenging at the time for a team to come in and do that. How did that process happen?
Well, it was pretty good. Mick had a pretty practical view of how things worked, and it had an immediate effect, really, because one of the main things he had to do, not only providing what I said before, was he had to marry the practicalities of our business to the statutory safety requirements of the terminals and within our own legal requirements. So, nothing happens instantly, but it was done very efficiently, and it was the main thing. It was provided, and it provided a confidence to our access to the coal terminals as well. So it was great.
Yeah, which does assist, doesn't it, to be able to a lot of companies, and I suspect a lot of the people that run the ports. You got some from government to private. You'll work with from Townsville down to Gladstone and so forth. So, what were some of the strategies that they did put in place, that Mackay Safety put in place for the business?
Oh, the procedures that the simple procedures and the obligations to following those procedures was essential. Like I said before, we operate a lot of cranes, and we operate within the port where the ship's cranes may operate and those sort of things, and we've got to act accordingly within the safety constraints of what is allowed. So the systems and the rewriting the work procedures was essential, and also getting those procedures and the importance of those procedures across to our staff to follow them as well was paramount. Yeah.
And how did you find, as you just said there, across to the staff as well? So how did you find it? One of the goals, of course, is to keep, make sure everybody goes home at the end of the day and that they are safe, and everybody around them and that works with them are safe in the end. But how did that change the safety culture within the business, especially with your staff?
Oh, it did dramatically. Yeah. Some people were slow to react, but they understood the responsibility of it and the importance of it. Some people were straight across it, straight away, and they realised the importance of to maintaining their own jobs, as well as particularly their own safety. It was an immediate effect with some people. Other people were slower, I should say, to get on board. But I think it was just it's a change thing, and but it worked rather well, and I'm quite happy with the way it was all done.
Can you recall any of those specific changes, especially for your staff, of what they needed to change in what they used to be doing in the past?
Oh, the main change was attitude.
Okay.
And attitude, it was we'll do this now, and this is the way we'll do it forever. But I mean, that's the thing was that people had to change that attitude because, like I said, the legal protocols and the obligations, and the fact that we had to operate in ports that demanded that we change the ways we do things. And not that we had any major dramas, but it was just rather than being a mechanical thing, it was something that I had to really had to address and follow accordingly. It was our business. So if we didn't do it, we didn't exist in the business. So.
I'm not sure in relation to the competitors that you may have trying to come into the ports. Do you have competitors trying to take your contracts?
Not for about 10 or so years, I wouldn't think. At least 10, 12 years. No, there was always lots of competitors that been in smaller, players that came into the market, and we did embark on some pretty heavy competitive times. But as time moved on, and with the demands and the safety demands of providing safe equipment such as cranes, and that a lot of smaller operators couldn't afford that sort of thing, and to provide the safety programs and the machinery, I guess, to follow what was required, it was a lot of them just could not afford it, and that's what I said in 2003. A lot of us got together and decided that we need to change tack and to maintain our existence in the market. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I asked, because as I said earlier, in relation to the Gladstone Ports Corporation, government owned. When you head up to Abbott Point and so forth, you've got more privately owned, and to be able to work across those companies and also government as well. I suspect a lot of fun can be had with government at all times. I think everybody understands that. They can do it differently to private business. But working with Mackay Safety, so how did that help with, maybe working with the government? Let's start there. How did that help with working with the government ports?
Oh, well, I guess you got different, all the ports are sort of, there's sort of different structures, I guess. The government organisations, the safety, the safety officers and that sort of thing from the government safety officers were provided a pretty good contact with those fellows, and they, made our questions and our responsibilities a lot easier by having that intermediary to work between the two parties. With regard to other government organisations, the port operators, you've got the Ports Corp and those sort of people. They have their protocols and their obligations, and it worked pretty well, like I said before. And Mick was good at explaining the necessities of what we had to do, and the practicalities we had to follow. So, it worked well.
Okay, so we're just about at the end of the Mackay Safety Our Clients podcast. Yourself, you've just retired, and I suspect that you probably can't sit in your backyard and do gardening in some respects. What's the future for yourself?
Well, depending on COVID, I hope it's travel, but
yes.
But that's the main ambition. But get things in order and get private life in order and travel, basically, yeah, and visit family.
Yes, COVID's been challenging for all of us in many different ways. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Lisle, on the Mackay Safety Our Clients podcast. Much appreciated. And I've got to say as well, congratulations on making retirement, building a fantastic business as well. Not easy to do. You managed to get through it. And all the best for the future.
No worries. Thank you very much, Kieran, for the time. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Mackay Safety Our Clients podcast, brought to you by 4PS Software and the Bullion Group. To find out more, including how Mackay Safety can assist you with implementing work health and safety initiatives within your business, go to mackaysafety.com.au.